Wanna play?
Wanna play? Wanna play? Wanna play? Wanna play?
Wanna play?
Hey everybody, welcome back to Wanna Play. My name is James McKenna, and today we've got ourselves yet another collab video. And today, for the first time in probably over a few years now, we're gonna be doing a triple threat collab with my friends, the Scream King and Primetime Horror, as we look at our top 10 favorite sequels in horror movie history. Now this is the second part, the Halloween Kills, if you will, of a three-part trilogy that we're all going to be doing on our channels. Yesterday, if everything has gone to plan, Michael over at the Scream King has already uploaded our top 10 favorite horror movies of all time, and then tomorrow, Ryan from Primetime Horror is going to be uploading our top 10 favorite horror remakes. So be sure, if you enjoyed this video, to check both of those out because, I mean, hey, you get a triple dosing of top 10 lists from us, so sounds like a pretty good deal to me if you're any type of fan of ours. So let's get straight into it. So yeah, this list was pretty difficult to come up with, so I've got a number of honorable mentions for you guys today. Those are going to be Army of Darkness, Saw 2, A Quiet Place 2, Friday the 13th Part 7, The New Blood,
The Texas Chainsaw Massacre
2, and Curse of Chucky. All of these spent time on my list, but just upon rewriting and re-ranking and just re-listing all of these great sequels in order, they were just booted off the list by the greatness of the other sequels. So it is tough. It is tough to put all of these in the honorable mentions category, but it had to be done, unfortunately.
Hello everybody, Ryan from Primetime Horror here, back on James's channel once again, and in today's video we are going to be doing top 10 horror sequels. Now before I get to the list, my honorable mentions are Halloween 4, Aliens, and Wes Craven's New Nightmare. Now some people might not consider Wes Craven's New Nightmare as a sequel, but I would, since it's still pertaining to the original series and it, you know, has the same characters, not in the same vein, but yeah, I'll still consider it a sequel. I love all these movies. Like I've said in previous videos, if this was like a top 15, then these would definitely be on the list, but they just barely didn't make it.
Alright, my honorable mentions for the top horror sequels of all time, I'm going to include Happy Death Day Part 2. It's another deja vu, Groundhog Day movie. I don't know if y'all haven't seen the first Happy Death Day movie. It's basically about a girl reliving her birthday and getting killed at the same time, running away from this serial killer. So I highly recommend seeing the sequel. Same concept, but a lot of different twists and turns within the film. My other honorable pick is Child's Play 3. Chucky, he's back once again, but this time terrorizing a military base, and he's iconic once again. And this time he has Andy, who's a little bit grown, who joined the military, and it's just a lot of fun. A weird intake of the movie, but it was great.
My number 10 pick is going to be Hellbound Hellraiser 2. This movie is an awesome follow-up to the first Hellraiser, and I think that it is by far the best Hellraiser sequel, like by far. I might even prefer it to the original. It's a really, really tough call, but man, this movie is so cool because it just shows so much more of Pinhead. You get to see his hell dimension and the labyrinth and just everything. It's just so cool. Plus, it has Pinhead's greatest entrance in the entire series. Pinhead, of course, being, in my opinion, the coolest looking horror villain of all time. So combine the coolest looking horror villain with his greatest entrance, it makes for one of the best scenes ever when Pinhead first shows up. It's just so awesome. We just get more of what made the original so good. It's just Hellraiser, but boosted up to 20, and I think that it is awesome. So my pick for number 10 is going to be Hellbound Hellraiser 2.
Alright, now coming in at number 10, we have Scream 2. Now, I have never been the biggest fan of the Scream franchise, but I have always had a soft spot in my heart for Scream 2. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure this was the first Scream movie I ever saw. It's definitely the one I have watched the most. I really love this movie. It's, it's really fun through and through. It's a solid Scream movie, with the iconic movie theater scene where she gets stabbed, but, no one's really paying attention. And, this is just a really solid movie. There's not really much else to say about it. Everyone loves the Scream franchise, so, most people love this movie, and I think it's good enough to be in my top 10.
Alright, so my choice for number 10 is, well, it's a little early, but I know it's great. I'm gonna manifest it to be amazing, but it's Terrifier 2. It comes out next month. It comes out in October, and I'm excited to see it. It's gonna be great, and I believe that's gonna be the best sequel that they have for the original Terrifier movie. I know this one's gonna be a short reason why, but if you've seen the trailer, literally it's literally Art the Clown just looks amazing. The whole movie seems great of how they're gonna make a story based on Halloween night again, and as well, it's gonna be literally almost 2.5 hour movie, so it's gonna be great. So my future top 10 reason of a sequel horror movie is Terrifier 2.
Coming in at number 9 is going to be Halloween 2018. It was a serious debate for me between Halloween 2018 and Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. I know I've said before that Halloween 3 is my favorite other than the first one, but that's not really a sequel. It's pretty much its own movie, even though it's called Halloween 3. So I've gone with 2018 because it's just more nostalgic for me. I could definitely see an argument saying that Halloween 4 is a better Halloween movie with a better atmosphere, because it is, but for me, 2018 just takes it because it's the first horror movie that I saw in theaters, and it's one of them that really got me into the genre. And it's got so many iconic moments, and some of the most iconic kills in the entire Halloween franchise, and in my opinion, possibly the best iteration of Michael Myers across all 12 movies. Halloween 2018 is awesome. Again, it was tough between 2018 and 4, but 2018 just barely edges it out for now on this list.
Now, coming in at number 9 is Evil Dead 2. Now, most people like this movie better than the first one. I don't. I like the first one better than this one, but not to say I don't like this one. This one is absolutely iconic. This movie is amazing. It is, everyone knows this is where the series starts to get a bit goofy, but a good goofy. This is just a really fun movie all the way from the beginning to the end. I mean, I have seen this movie a million times, and no matter how many times I watch it, it still keeps me in my seat watching it, having a good time. This is another one of those horror movies that is definitely fun to watch with friends, just laugh at it and, just have a good time. And this movie is just iconic. Everyone loves this movie, and rightfully so.
All right, we're gonna be serious for number 9. 28 Weeks Later. I have chosen 28 Weeks Later. It follows up the first movie, 28 Days Later. It's about these two young kids stuck in that zombie apocalypse setting in London. And with that, there's a rage virus that's going on still. They're technically zombies. And the whole setting, the music, the soundtrack, the horror behind the whole entire movie itself is just intense. It's fun to watch. These two young kids literally are surviving the whole experience from this virus in London, and it's a great zombie film that I would highly recommend. So that would be my number 9 for a great sequel to watch in horror movies.
My number 8 pick is going to be Dawn of the Dead. Now, this isn't my favorite George Romero Living Dead movie. Matter of fact, I actually prefer both Day of the Dead and Night of the Living Dead to this, but you can't deny that this is, from an objective standpoint, one of the greatest horror sequels ever made. Just the gore by Tom Savini, what it was able to do. This was one of the first movies to show the crazy 80s gore that would come to follow in the following films, like, you know, the slasher films such as Friday the 13th, The Burning, The Prowler, stuff like that. I don't think effects like that would have been achieved if it wasn't for Dawn of the Dead and the effects that we got, and just how awesome this movie is. It's such a large-scale movie as opposed to Night of the Living Dead and Day of the Dead, and man, it's just awesome. You get probably the best written characters in all of the Living Dead movies. This is just objectively one of the best sequels of all time, and you'd be hard-pressed to find any list of best horror sequels without it. It's not my favorite of all time, but I can't deny that it is one of the 10 greatest horror sequels ever, so it's gotta make my list.
Coming in at number 8, we have Hatchet 2. Now, a lot of people probably wouldn't have this movie on their list, but I mean, I love the Hatchet franchise. Sadly, I should have gotten to this franchise sooner. I only recently watched this franchise probably maybe a little over a year ago, and I love these movies, not Victor Crowley, but this movie I love. I love Hatchet 2. It's seriously fun as hell. Just like with all the other Hatchet movies, the kills in this movie are amazing, and then, you know, Danielle Harris puts on a great performance as the final girl, like she always does. In my opinion, I prefer her over the original actor who played Mary Beth in the first Hatchet, and this movie is just amazing. You know, Kane Hodder, a great killer, great as Victor Crowley, of course, and you know, this is just a seriously fun movie, you know, with the freakishly long chainsaw kill, and then, you know, this movie is just amazing, and I've always loved how these movies literally just cut, like, kind of like in the middle of a scene, and then the movie ends. I've always loved that, you know, good kind of cliffhanger to make you want more, and this movie definitely has a good one of those, and yeah, I just love this movie, and for me, it is definitely on my top 10 sequels.
Alrighty, going on to number 8 is The Quiet Place 2. I really did enjoy the movie. I chose it at number 8 because I believe it had a lot of potential. Within the film, it follows up the families trying to survive that monster invasion of literally monsters who can just hear everything and kill their victims with a little bit of sound. Now, the movie is kind of, to me, very depicable to really, like, debatable to talk about, because I wish it was a little bit better. That's why I'm gonna keep it at number 8. But it's a great film, a great monster film, and it's a great follow-up to the original movie, and it gives you a little bit more of that world of A Quiet Place. And again, it's another quiet film, so be prepared for silence. And that's my number 8.
Coming in at number 7 is gonna be Aliens. One of the most badass movies ever made, period. It's not exactly a horror movie, but it's a sequel to a horror movie, so I feel like we can count it. It's definitely more of an action thriller kind of movie, but man, is it so awesome. It's got the best iteration of Ripley in the entire franchise. She is just kicking all kinds of ass throughout this whole movie. You get more xenomorphs, plus the Queen Xenomorph, and that end battle is such a classic horror scene. Ripley in the mecha suit versus the Queen Xenomorph. It is just, it's stuff of horror legend. This movie rules so hard. It's another one like Dawn of the Dead, where it's just, from an objective standpoint, one of the best horror sequels ever made. And again, you'd be hard pressed to find any list without aliens on it. It's just that good. There's just so much about it that just rules. It's so good, and it's gotta make my list at number 7.
Now, coming in at number 7, we have Saw 2. Now, this movie is a very close second on my Saw ranking. I love Saw 2. I remember I watched these for the first time as a double feature because I forget, I think it was on Netflix, maybe way back in like the early 2010s, but I have always loved this movie. It is seriously fun, and I think it is a great follow-up from the, the masterpiece that is the original Saw. And yeah, I mean, just like a lot of the movies on this list, it is near and dear to me. I love the Saw franchise, and this is definitely one of the more better ones in the franchise. Even if it's not your favorite, you can still admit that this is a very good installment in the franchise.
Going on to number 7 is Conjuring 2. Now, The Conjuring 2 is a great start for the supposedly Conjuring world universe that they're trying to still keep doing. It introduces the nun, that scary nun that you guys probably been seeing a lot on mainstream media because she's creepy, and it brings another crazy horror film that the supernatural duo is basically trying to save this family from another demonic invasion, basically. And hopefully they'll make another good Conjuring movie soon. And that is my top 7. That's my number 7.
Coming in at number 6 is one that you're going to have a tough time finding on other people's lists, because that is the made-for-TV sequel to When a Stranger Calls Back. This right here is probably the earliest example of a legacy sequel that you could find. Psycho 2 is probably the only other one that came before this. But man, unlike Psycho 2, which is a great movie, but I don't think it's better than the original, I think that When a Stranger Calls Back is better than the original When a Stranger Calls. It's just got so much more atmosphere, and it brings back some of the characters from the original film and just makes them so much cooler. It brings back Jill Johnson. They kind of give her the Laurie Strode treatment now. She's older, she's wiser, and she's tougher, and it's just so cool. She's such a kick-ass final girl in this movie. Possibly the most underrated final girl in horror movie history is Jill Johnson from When a Stranger Calls Back. And it has legit one of the most epic and memorable ending stretches of all time, and one of the most unique horror villains ever. This movie is so underrated. It's so good. It just takes When a Stranger Calls and makes it 20 times better. And the original When a Stranger Calls was still a classic. But man, this is such a good movie, and I think it had to make my list.
Coming in at number 6, we have Child's Play 2. Now, I love Child's Play 2. This movie, out of all the movies on this list, I have probably watched this one the most, because it always seems to be on certain streaming platforms and stuff like that, and it's always a fun watch every time. Just like with Evil Dead 2, I've watched this movie a million times, and I still love it each time I watch it. It still has me in my seat, just, having a fun time, and I love the way that Chucky gets brought back into Andy's life in this movie, how he holds one of the toy makers at gunpoint, and takes him to Andy's foster parents' house. This also introduces Kyle, which is, a franchise classic. Everyone loves Kyle. I love Kyle. And, his name always blanks me, but the actor who plays Andy puts on a great performance as him, as always. Even when he's an adult, he puts on a great performance as Andy. And yeah, I just love this movie to death, and it definitely deserves to be on this list.
Number 6, my choice is Aliens. So I chose Aliens to be my number 6 horror sequel because it brings the action from the original one. So the original movie was very suspense. We were getting to the point of who is stalking these astronauts in this space and adventure sci-fi drama, and it finally leads to realize that it is aliens, legit aliens. And in the sequel, Aliens, it brings the great protagonist Ridley battling these aliens, trying to take over the whole ship, literally the whole entire crew itself. It's a lot of action, a lot of suspense, and there's a big epic battle between the protagonist and the villain itself. And it's a lot of just mysterious vibes. It gives you that creepiness of just monsters trying to literally kill the whole crew. And I highly recommend seeing Aliens. That's going to be my number 6. And all I can tell you is you like guns, you like action, you like aliens, watch it.
Coming in at number 5 is going to be a controversial one, I know. It's A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge. Yes, this is my favorite A Nightmare on Elm Street movie because I think it does the best with balancing the fun Freddy with the terrifying Freddy, because this is Freddy having fun. Like, he's cracking jokes and one-liners here, and he's having an absolute blast of a time while managing to be terrifying. In the original film, he's scary, but he's not having a whole lot of fun. And then in 3, he's having a whole lot of fun, but it's definitely less scary than the first 2. This one finds the perfect balance of showing Freddy having fun while the audience isn't, and the audience is still watching on terrified. It's so cool. Like, it's got some of Freddy's best lines, some of Freddy's best kills, best scenes. This movie is just so awesome, and it's so underrated. I understand why people don't like it, because it really doesn't fit in with the rest of the series. Like, it doesn't have any returning characters besides Freddy himself. It's kind of like the black sheep of the franchise, but it's really good. If you don't like it, or you remember not liking it but it's been a while, I recommend you do a rewatch, because I really liked it, and I hope that I can find more people that like it as much as I do, because I think that it is awesome.
Now, coming in at number 5, we have Puppet Master 2. Now, this movie is, just like with Hatchet 2, might not be on a lot of people's list, but it's definitely on mine. Out of the entire Puppet Master franchise, this is definitely my favorite, and it's just an extremely fun movie. I think it is, even though quality, like picture quality wise, this is the worst in the franchise, other than that, I think this movie is great. I love, even though it's just a copy of The Invisible Man, I still like the way they made Andre Toulon look in this movie with the bandage wrapping, with the glasses. I think it looks very cool. And towards the end, when he kind of turns into like a puppet himself, I think it looks really creepy. And yeah, I just love this movie through and through. The puppets, of course, are amazing. Blade, I always love Blade, and you know, he's sick in this movie, of course. And I'm pretty sure this is the first movie Torch is introduced, and I love Torch. And yeah, this movie is a solid Puppet Master film.
Alright, my number 5 is Nightmare on Elm Street 2. Now, my channel, just to give you a little sum up, is all about horror, video games, and above, and being part of the LGBT community. Nightmare on Elm Street is literally a gay horror film. So, it's actually pretty good. I actually really liked it. It's just one of those sequels, especially in the Nightmare on Elm Street series, that you really wouldn't want to like, I suppose. Based upon about a young, literally the main character is a guy, and he's basically a scream queen, and the whole movie is just an adventure of him trying to just get away from Freddy, haunting him, trying to basically killing off his friends, and the whole movie is just a thrill ride. It's fun. It's gay, literally, but it's a great movie to follow up to the original Nightmare on Elm Street movie, and it's Freddy. What else can you say? So my number 5 is Nightmare on Elm Street 2.
Coming in at number 4 is going to be Psycho 2. Now, I debated between Psycho 2 and Psycho 3 because Psycho 3 is so cool. It's pretty much just like an homage movie the whole time, directed by Anthony Perkins himself. But you can't deny that Psycho 2 is definitely a better movie from like a storyline perspective, from a character perspective. It's awesome. It's the movie that I guess proved that legacy sequels actually could be a thing. It didn't really do that, like it didn't really spawn more legacy sequels like Halloween 2018 did, but it was really the first one to kind of do what it did, be a sequel to a movie that took place over 20 years before, and be just as good, and in some people's opinions, even better. because it takes Psycho, and again, just like When a Stranger Calls Back and some of the other ones that I've talked about, it just scales it up. There's more kills, more gore, more Norman Bates, and there's more conflict, and there's more twists. It's just Psycho, but more, and it's so, so cool. I'm so glad that they made this movie, and they made it as good as they did. It, of course, would lead to Psycho 3 and 4, which also are probably contenders for this list if I didn't put Psycho 2 on here. It's great, and if you haven't seen it, you've got to check it out, especially if you're a fan of the original.
Coming in at number 4 is Hellraiser 2. Now, this movie and the original Hellraiser, I mean, they're back and forth when I'm ranking them all the time. That's how much I love this movie. This movie is an extremely good watch. It keeps you I mean, some parts are dull, but I mean, even the dull parts always have like something weird and creepy, like when the Dr. Chernard, when he gets a mental patient, brings him onto the mattress, and all the worms and insects are on him, and he cuts it off, and he's going insane, and then the stepmother comes out of the mattress and eats him, basically. This movie is just freakishly weird, and I love that. I am here for it. The Cenobites, amazing as always. Of course, this is the final movie where you see all the original Cenobites, sadly, but for a final performance, they did great. One thing that kind of puts this movie down a bit for me is how easily the original Cenobites got killed off by Dr. Chernard, a character who we just got introduced to. But besides that, I love this movie. Besides that, I have zero complaints about it. I've always loved this movie, and it definitely deserves to be this high on my list.
Alright, going on to number 4 is Scream 2. Now, it's exciting because for sure we always wanted that sequel to the best movie of Scream. So Scream 2 did a remarkable follow-up of leading more drama and horror within Ghostface. Still trying to kill Sidney Prescott. And within that movie, she's in college at the moment, and she's just getting stalked by Ghostface once again. But it leads to more great scenes, more interesting characters, more mystery of who done it, who is this killer, who's Ghostface. We thought he was gone in the first film. Why is he back? So it's a really fun sequel to watch, and I highly recommend watching Scream 2.
Coming into number 3 is going to be another controversial one. Get ready, because I know that some people didn't actually like this one. It's The Strangers Prey at Night. That's right, this high at number 3. Because honestly, this is one of my favorite horror movies there is. It just has so much. Don't get me wrong, I loved The Strangers and what it was able to do and how realistic it was. But this sequel just has so many memorable moments, memorable scenes, memorable kills. The pool scene is one of, in my opinion, the best horror scenes. Just flat out best scenes in horror movie history. It rules so hard. Kinsey is also one of, again, just like When a Stranger Calls Back, one of the most underrated final girls there is. When she kills Dollface or Pinup Girl or whichever one it was, it's one of the most hell yeah and exciting moments I have ever seen in a sequel. This movie is so good. And if you've only watched this once and you didn't like it, I implore you to give it a second chance, because it really is that good in my opinion. It rules.
Alright, now coming in at number 3 is Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Now, this movie I have always loved. This movie is just barely behind the first one on my ranking. That's how much I like it. It's very goofy, but it's also goofy in a kind of creepy way, if you will. Like Leatherface doing his weird little dance. I mean, that is funny, but unnerving. It's just an overall fun movie. Then, of course, Chop Top. Who doesn't like Chop Top? I love Chop Top. He is one of my favorite horror characters. Even though he's only in one movie, he's still very entertaining, and every time he's on the screen, I just love watching him. And yeah, this movie is just great through and through. It has a great final girl, an underrated final girl in my opinion. And yeah, I love the setting of this movie, an underground, abandoned theme park, tunnel-y type thing. I love that whole setting. I love how the set is decorated with all the random lights and bones and what have you. And then the final scene where, spoilers, Chop Top gets thrown off the top of a hill. I love that, and the battle with Chop Top and the final girl. And yeah, with all those attributes combined, it boosts it up to number 3 on my list, and deservingly.
Now, my choice for number 3 is Friday the 13th Part 2. And the reason why I give it an amazing props because it introduces the iconic horror villain, Jason. Now, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the first one, watch it. But in the original movie, the killer was Jason's mom. And going on to the sequel, it's finally Jason. So Jason, he's that masked murderer, serial killer, killing off these campers again inside that environment of literally Camp Crystal Lake. And it's a fun way to introduce Jason, even though he doesn't have the iconic hockey mask. He wears a potato sack and with one eye, but it is a creepy mask itself. So I highly recommend watching Friday the 13th Part 2 if you want to get in. I guess you could skip the first film and go from there, but you have to watch them all. They're great. Well, maybe not Jason Goes to Hell. No, I don't know about that one. But my number 3rd pick is Friday the 13th Part 2.
Coming in at number 2 is yet another one that actually came out a couple years ago, much like The Strangers. It's Dr. Sleep. Again, this movie is so good. It is, without question, the best legacy sequel that we've gotten so far, and it probably isn't going to be topped. It brings back Danny Torrance, now an alcoholic, as he takes on this little girl, Abra, as they fight these crazy, like, insane, like, demon vampire creatures that feast on kids with the Shining ability. I'm telling you right now, Rose the Hat and her gang of Goonies are probably the most evil horror villains of all time. Maybe that Cochran dude from Halloween 3, because he did try to genocide all of the United States. But man, these people are so evil. And this movie is just shot so well. It makes you feel everything you want to feel. When it wants you to feel terrified, you're terrified. Grossed out, you're grossed out. When it wants you to feel happy and excited, you feel that way. And the ending stretch, when they go back to the hotel, is so awesome. Sure, it is pretty heavy fan service, that ending stretch, but I think that it is earned, because Dr. Sleep is just incredible.
At number 2 is Friday the 13th Part 4. Now, I love this movie to death. I always have. It has everything good you can say about any of the other movies in the franchise. This movie has, all the way from iconic characters to iconic kills to iconic scenes to iconic Jason. I mean, this movie has it all, and I just love it. It's just so fun to watch, and there's literally nothing to complain about when it comes to this movie, in my opinion. And yeah, I mean, I've spoke about this movie a million times, and you know, with everything I just said, it definitely deserves to be runner-up to the first place spot.
Alright, number 2 is Child's Play 2. I have chosen Child's Play 2 because it's just so memorable. We have great characters. We have Andy and also Kyle. She's introduced in the film, in the series. And with both of them, it's basically like a brother, stepsister duo going on, trying to get away from Chucky, who's on another killing spree. Still trying to get Andy. And basically the whole film is just more involved in the Chucky series world. This time you get a setting inside a house, and it's a lot more broad because it goes into a whole toy factory towards the end. And with Chucky still being iconic, he gets more lines. He basically becomes a doll version of Freddy Krueger in a way. It's just amazing, and I highly recommend watching Child's Play Part 2.
But my pick for number 1 is gonna be Son of Frankenstein from 1939. That's right, one of the first sequels ever for horror films is still, in my opinion, the best. It's just so good. It's got Frankenstein, of course, being played by Boris Karloff, and although Henry Frankenstein, played by, of course, Colin Clive in the original Bride, although he isn't in this film, everything else makes up for his disappearance. All the characters, all the moments are just done so well. Frankenstein is at his best. He looks awesome. He's got kind of a new outfit going on, but man, it looks so cool. And the ending is just insane. There's just this random, like, giant, like, pit of hell, like, just a pit to hell in this dude's lab. And the ending sees Frankenstein about to kill this kid when the main character swings down from a freaking, like, rope and, like, drop kicks him into literal Christian hell. It's absolutely insane. Like, it is insane. This movie is so good, and to this day, I don't think that a single horror sequel has topped it. And in my opinion, the greatest horror sequel of all time is Son of Frankenstein.
Now, coming in at number 1 is, no surprise to anybody, Halloween 2. Now, I have spoken about this movie a million times, and I'll speak about it a million times more. This movie is absolutely amazing. I mean, I love all the other movies on this list, but I mean, all the other movies on this list down here, I love them. This movie is all the way to the roof. I love this movie. Iconic scene after iconic scene, iconic character after iconic character. I mean, this movie has it all. It really does, and I'm not even exaggerating when I'm saying that. This movie is so near and dear to me. I love this movie. I have loved it for as long as I can remember. I've watched it a million times over, and every time I watch it, I love it more and more. And yeah, I have babbled on about this movie enough.
Alrighty, my number 1 pick is Halloween 2, and it's amazing. Of course, I love the Halloween franchise. I'm in love with the original, but the second one needs to get credit. Halloween 2 is basically the follow-up of the original movie, and it's another crazy adventure. What Laurie Strode has to go through is surviving the Michael Myers terror inside a hospital this time. Basically, she supposedly got away from Michael Myers, but unfortunately, he's trying to hunt her down. It gives you that 80s vibe of a movie. It's another great serial killer slasher film that we need, and it's honestly probably the best sequel that was ever made within the horror community, the horror world, everything really. So I would check out Halloween 2, and that's my number 1 for the top 10 sequels of all time horror edition.
So thank you for watching our ranking on our top 10 greatest horror sequels. Be sure to catch our other collabs when they come out. Of course, we're going to be doing, as I mentioned already, the top 10 greatest horror movies of all time, then this video, then the top 10 horror remakes. All are going to be released in succession on our channels, so be sure to check them all out. But until next time, I want to thank you all very much for watching. You can subscribe to this channel if you would like to, but I definitely recommend you subscribe, of course, to the Scream King and Primetime Horror. You can follow me on Instagram at James from Wanna Play. But until next time, as I said, I want to thank you all very much for watching. Goodbye and good night. Bang.